So Cautious Hero was an anime I was honestly cautious about. I dabbled very slightly in the source material after watching the preview that just had me laughing at a man who was getting all worked up, he was getting pumped up, he must have an insane mission, and then you see him fighting a slime with a goddess just kind of deadpan being like, what is this? So I dabbled very slightly in the source material just to see, is it as funny as the trailer made out to be, and from what I a little bit read and what I was reading, it seemed like it was a pretty funny story. So of course I was like, alright, I gotta try this one. Even though we get 1,000 isekai-like series a season a year, this one seems to, at the very least, be trying to do something slightly different with its comedic approach. I've seen a lot of people compare it to, like, Konosuba. I don't think it's nearly as funny as Konosuba, but honestly, it's the next best thing for me. What I wanted out of this was, if it was going to be a 12-episode anime, even if they didn't go crazy with a story or plot, find new ways to make the idea of a hero who, stat-wise, like, he's 1 in 100 million. He is the perfect hero to summon in and to defeat your demon kings, all the minions. He would get the job done because of his natural skill levels. It should be an easy quest even for an S-rank world. But then you got a hero, Hsieh, who is very, very cautious. And there is honestly a nearly unlimited amount of ways for like a 12 to 24 episode season to find comedic ways to keep that cautious persona entertaining, especially because he doesn't fit in with the archetypes that you typically expect for a hero like this. What a lot of isekais go for is they try to make it, it's very generic hero, very generic looking. It's basically supposed to be wish fulfillment for the readers, the viewers, so they're like, oh, this is me, I'm getting the harem, I'm getting all this stuff. Where with this guy, he's handsome, he's ripped, he's buff, he's got everything, but his quirk is that he's overly cautious, which pushes away the people who naturally are kind of foaming over the mouth over him. That's what I really like, especially between the goddess Ritsa and himself, because this goddess doesn't fit in with what you're typically used to, rather being like overly arrogant or overly like, she wants the MC, which she kind of does, but at the same time doesn't. I like how all of the comedic reactions come from her and just her dumbfoundedness of being like, I can't believe this is the hero I'm working with. She knows he has the potential and skills to be the best, but his persona keeps him back. And the amount of times that I was chuckling, I was smiling, I was just laughing at what was happening. Now, there was only one time I bursted out laughing, which was the whole slime gag, which was absolutely hilarious. The whole idea that this man, he sees a single slime and he unleashes his, best attack, blows it up, and then he just keeps going and going and going because in his cautious mind, he's like, well, we gotta make sure it's dead. Just the destructive power to such a powerful man versus a slime, that had me busting out laughing. The rest of the jokes didn't have me that much oh my god, I'm gonna have tears coming out my eyes. But it was entertaining. In most comedy series, I don't laugh out loud. I can be entertained and find them funny without bursting out a laugh. But I am glad that at least one of the gags in this episode, it was like, okay, this is really living up to what I wanted out of this series. I really enjoyed the duo here, because I wasn't sure the direction they really wanted to go with this pair, just based on the premise, what I was hearing. There's so many ways you could take it, but the direction they took it, and based on the voice actors and how perfectly casted they are, it's absolutely a match made in heaven. The idea that you summon a person so perfectly ripped out of his mind, stat-wise, he's going to gain a lot of experience, and then you summon him and he completely throws the tropes out the window. He isn't, fascinated that he's been summoned, he's going to go to this magical world, he's going to be a hero. He immediately is like, I am not going with you, you're giving me food, it's probably poisoned. Every single thing that happens, he naturally pushes back against, and that's actually a really funny quirk. It could easily grow stale. I know a lot of people are going to say that, absolutely, but I think in a one-core run, I don't see how it could, just based on the sheer number of just variety of him being cautious there was. There was a really great moment, which I believe it was in the synopsis or something like that, that it kind of brought up the question of hey, or just the idea that, hey, if he goes into an armory shop, he's going to buy 3 sets of armor, one for his main set, one as a backup, and one as a backup for the backup, and that happens in this episode, and I love that scene so much. Definitely my second favorite scene in this episode. Just the idea that you are given a bag of money, this will get you the best equipment you need, and he walks in wanting 3 generic sets of armor, he's gotta be prepared. Just the idea in his mind, how is he gonna carry all that armor? And that's what I love about this guy, and just the overall idea that you have such a cautious mentality, but obviously at the same time, could actually provide for interesting character development should he open up and not be as cautious to certain people over the course of the run. Hell, he takes this little warding amulet that a little girl gives him, and he actually takes it after kind of a remark being like, oh, is this like curse or something like that? So I definitely can see the potential and interesting character growth, but the overall comedy structure was fantastic. This Hsieh, he reminds me of the type of player who in any game would stay on like the starting level, the starting island, the starting training area, and just maxed out everything before entering the main game, where at that point he'd be over leveled and nothing would be a challenge. Like, that's who he is as a character. And the idea that even the most simple of monsters or objects, he'll just unleash nuclear bombs upon them, even though he only has like 2 attacks. The idea that he puts those 2 attacks on a simple slime that won't even attack him unless he attacks first is hilarious. But the best part of that entire sequence was after all that's said and done, they immediately send, I think it was like level 66 Demon Warrior after him. That sold the episode, sealed the deal. It's like, I'm going to love this show. I'm going to love watching it. I'm going to love reviewing it. I'm going to love everything about it. I love how he doesn't do what the cliche character would do. Like, in this situation, if you were to put it in most authors' hands, there'd be one of 2 things. Either A, they would try to stand their ground, shaking in fear, being like, I'm going to die, but I'm the hero, I gotta do this, they'll get saved, something like that. Or they would, cower behind a rock. Not just full on bolt it, being like, even though he's strong, he's not strong enough for this. I love it, and I just love how deadpan he is. Like, there's slight alterations to his face animation, but for the most part, it's pretty much still, like, he's stone cold, badass, and I love it because he doesn't fit in with the tropey gimmicks that you associate with a character in a series such as this. Most of the reactions are coming from the goddess, and honestly, I was impressed that in 20 some odd minutes, they found so many ways to shift her art style up and continue to make me laugh. There's this one point in this episode that it's so subtle you might not even notice it, but she gives him like this like goddess phone basically that mirrors herself. It's like, hey, buzz this whenever you're done training. And when she comes in, he's obviously shirtless, he's ripped out of his mind, and she has a bloody nose. But they even gave the doll a bloody nose alongside it. It's like those little details that if you don't pick up on, it's not going to ruin a scene. But if you do, it just makes it even more amusing to you. The whole idea that this is a girl who, if he was a tropey, like, mentality-wise, they would probably already be together or something like that, or the hero would be like, oh, women, I'm afraid. But here, like, he's like, he has no interest. Like, he just doesn't have interest. It's not that he's oblivious, he's like, this chick is just crazy, I don't trust her. And I love the idea that she tries to be like, oh, butterflies, like, oh, it's gonna be romantic, and then he shuts her down and she just goes demonic and off-model. Something I really appreciated with Konosuba's animation was how it allowed the characters to really go off-model. Loose line work, loose animation. Make it feel like it could be wild and go off character model. And that's what we see here. The art design isn't going to, like, if you capture a screenshot or something, it's not going to be like, oh, this is the most crisp and cleanly detailed art that you're going to see. But for the style of comedy that we're seeing here, it's actually a match made in heaven. It allows these characters to be expressive. And if it wasn't for the visuals, this episode wouldn't have been nearly as funny, honestly. The amount of just overreactions and overly detailed or even under-detailed faces and just body language was hilarious. Add in with the perfect casting for both of these characters. Like, the amount of serious and deadpan to our main hero is fantastic, and the amount of, like, absurdity, adorableness, craziness wrapped up into this goddess, it's hilarious, and I wasn't expecting to find a goddess that I like as much as Aqua, but honestly, like, she's like the next best thing. Like, I still prefer my girl Aqua and Konosuba, but it's nice to have someone who can equal her in some ways as being someone who is so ridiculous that you just love and hate her all at the same time. This series overall, I think for me, it just had to do 2 things. 1, really bring out the visuals to make it funny, which they absolutely did, and find enough ways within its first episode to prove to me that a cautious hero and some form of kind of breaking away from the mold and tropes that you associate with the goddess kind of character, basically prove that it can be funny for at least a one-core anime. And I think it absolutely did. I also can definitely see the potential for interesting story, like narratives and things like that. They could definitely have some fun with arcs, but also just character development should they want to pursue it. But if they did want to remain mostly funny and comedic, even though it would grow stale eventually, I definitely can see for at least this anime season, it being entertaining and providing for a lot of laughs for a lot of people. Overall, This was a blast. I walked in, I've had a little bit of a stressful week. I'm just setting up a bunch of new equipment and things like that. So it's just like a headache, a hassle. And then I go into this episode, and by the time I leave it, I'm just so relieved, so rejuvenated. I'm like, God damn, I'm ready to tackle the rest of this week. It was pure entertainment in the best case, and honestly, it did everything that I think it needed to do right for its intro episode. There's a lot of ways that this could go wrong in the future, but at the same time, there's a lot of ways it could go equally right. So honestly, just only time will tell. But for a first episode, the ridiculous animation, the ridiculous character reactions, and just the perfectly balanced pair of characters. I'm so excited to see how this world, its cast, is going to open up and how the jokes will continue to evolve, or maybe stay the same, but just find new ways to incorporate themselves into this ridiculous world overall. But for anyone who has any experience with the source material, anime originals like myself who watched this episode, what are you feeling about episode 1 of Cautious Hero? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.